More and W right now. It's all brought to you by Howard Bank and our friends there. New locations moving into Baltimore soon. We'll be telling you more about that. Royal Farms, real fresh, real fast. And yes, we have sponsors here, Leigh Steinberg. And that's how we pay the bills around here. You know a little bit about that back in the day, yes?
A little bit about marketing, yes.
For you and where you are right now in your career, this second thing that's happened, and now obviously the Mahomes situation unfolding here this week. Where's the next mountain when you've created? It's like, what's Tom Brady going to do to top? But I mean, your legacy in the 80s and 90s of quarterbacks, where you are right now, I don't think you even believe that you would have that sort of stable again, right?
Well, it's you're always going to find role model young men, which is what we look for, and the league is so quarterback-centric at this point that without a franchise quarterback, it's virtually impossible to wade your way through the playoffs and make the Super Bowl. So,
although they're trying. Everyone here said Nick Foles is a starter. If he were your quarterback, he'd be a starter, right?
Well, you know, it's interesting because he's done so well and in the playoffs, and I think he's really the key. The rush they'll put on Tom Brady, and then whether or not in this context Nick Foles can elevate his level of play.
Well, and I guess this is a new place, I guess, for agents to have these quarterbacks that are, 10, 12, $14 million quarterback. The perception of that quarterback is you can't win with that quarterback, right? Unless you have a $20 million quarterback or a first-round draft pick.
So it's all about the concept of franchise quarterback, someone that you can win because of rather than with, build the team around for 10 to 12 years, and who most importantly, in critical situations, in adversity, when you've thrown a number of interceptions, the crowd's booing, your center's looking at you like you're on hallucinogens. Can you then adopt a quiet mind, compartmentalize, and elevate your level of play to pull the team on your back? And that is what's the most critical factor in all of football.
Leigh, I'm going to pull the pin out of this whole thing here. You got all these kids here, Ronald Jones, Chase Litton, all these. How is it different recruiting a 17-year-old athlete in 2018 than Steve Bartkowski in 1970, whatever it was, when you rolled out of Berkeley?
So the thing is, Nestor, that they are millennials. So they grow up on social media and on big screen computers with color and sound.
They know what image is these days.
But on the other hand, it subverts attention span. So you better get the pitch out in the first 5 minutes.
Right. Oh, yeah.
You're not going to have a player sit there for a couple hours like they used to. And so it's a different generation. You still find kids with good heart, but attention span shorter, and they are products of texting and tweeting and every form of social media.
The other part of this is your philanthropy and what kind of person you are, and we're all familiar with Jerry Maguire and giving and all of that. Is there something about a young person today? I hear this, but you may know it to be. There's a lot of attaboys, there's press conferences, there's video, there's look at me, in a way that Rod Tidwell of that generation T.O. had to go out in the parking lot and do push-ups and call Rosenhaus in for that. That's not where we can do the push-ups. And that wasn't long ago, right? And that might keep him out of the Hall of Fame again on Saturday. But there's also this part where your reputation begins with believing in the greater good and the bigger picture. Maybe that was a harder sell to Rod Tidwell 25 years ago than it is to some of these kids right now, because I think they are growing up in a different world where there is a sense of participation, at least amongst the young people I see.
Right. I think they get it. And so we carefully profile, looking for the young man who's going to be willing to retrace his roots to the high school, collegiate, professional community, set up scholarship funds, set up a charitable foundation, and really make an impact. And we're giving philanthropy awards at our party on Saturday. So humanitarian awards to Andy Reid, the coach of Kansas City, to Rick Spielman, the GM of the Vikings, to a whole series for what they do off the field. Eric Dickerson's getting the Retired Player Award. Larry Fitzgerald Jr.'s getting the active player award. So
we honored Earl Campbell last year.
Yes,
so
we
that
did.
that warmed my heart to see see Earl up there, because I was a Tyler Cannonball guy.
Well, it's funny because I've started doing work for him, later in his career, and he's talk about an icon. You see players here, and they draw a little bit of attention. If Earl Campbell walks into a room, it's like...
I sat on his lap 7 years ago today. I swear to you, it showed up on my timeline this morning. I sat on his lap in Dallas on that icy night at Jerry Jones's party at the house, and I've never been in a room with Earl Campbell. My wife has only seen me starstruck a few times. Around you, Lee, usually. Paul Rogers from... who else? A couple of rock stars, but I saw Earl Campbell, and I said... I'm getting a picture, and it was an awful picture. There was no lighting,
right.
But it makes it even a better story. It's like
I went to the that was our last year's awardee, Stephen Smith Sr.
Of course.
Yeah.
So, some thoughts for you about the party and what that entails, and where you are now that you're back to being really a full-time agent, because there was that period of your life, and we've talked about that again and again, and I know you always share how many sunny days of the street you've had.
Exactly. So. Well, I had a struggle with alcohol. In March, I'll be 8 years sober, and the reason I talk about it is in the hope that if someone's out there struggling, despairing,
and someone undoubtedly is.
No,
always, right? Of
no
course.
hope. They know there are 12-step programs, and there's a brighter future at the end of it. At our party, we're doing things like a live hookup between troops in the field in Afghanistan and the party, so they can sort of take part in and talk to the athletes. So that will be a fun thing. And we're doing a concussion summit before it. So another focus on brain health, another focus on trying to do awareness, prevention, and cure.
Are you happy that the sport's going that way, that the league is at least putting an effort forth here on CTE and all those things? This was something I'm sure when you were a kid, given your... Bob Costas has said, I can't do football anymore. I know you've seen the devastating... Hey, I see it when I see Earl Campbell, right? All you got to do is look at Earl, and you know what this game can do to you.
At least his brain is intact. His body is it's had some problems. I had a crisis of conscience back in the late 80s, early 90s, because I had a fiduciary responsibility to players, but was I sending them down the road to dementia? And so we held our first concussion conference in 1994.
94,
yes.
Wow,
and
25 years ago.
Steve Young and Troy Aikman and Drew Bledsoe and Warren Moon were all there, so at least they got to hear. The problem is that the G-force at the line of scrimmage has gotten considerably higher, so bigger, stronger athletes cracking. So if you have an athlete who plays defensive line, every time they hit the defensive line, it creates a low-level subconcussive event. Just a little bit of change. So they could walk out of the sport with 10,000 subconcussive events, none of which they're aware of, none of which were diagnosed, but the aggregate almost certainly does the same thing that getting knocked out 6 times does.
Tell everybody where to go to find all that you're doing. Steinberg Sports, you're my friend on Facebook, so you can find Lee on my Facebook page as well. From time to time, you always seem to find pictures of my mom or my wife to say hello. I do appreciate all the love you've given.
Well, talk about an inspirational story. Jennifer is inspiration in her own way for anybody struggling with a tough disease, and the way she's fought back. And looking at her today, I mean, she looks gorgeous.
She just showed up for you today. She just landed.
But anyway, she's a really awesome role model for people that might be struggling with an illness, who are just depressed and have no hope.
Well, she will be sipping cocktails at the world-famous Steinberg Sports Super Bowl party. So you'll have at least one miracle in the house on Saturday.
Well, Nestor, it wouldn't be Super Bowl week without you.
I appreciate that. It's very sweet of you. Leigh Steinberg joining us here from Steinberg Sports. We'll let you get out of here. And we'll tell everybody it's all brought to you by our friends at Howard Bank, and they're going to be open some locations around town. They are our news sponsor, as well as our big sponsor here for Super Bowl 52 coverage, as well as Royal Farms, as well as our friends at Pizza John's down in Essex. If you're in the market for some pizza here this weekend for the big game, please do that. Stop by and see Al Cal Seafood while you're down there as well. Send your friends down to Essex. I still go to Essex. I still eat in Essex. You should too. Last but never least, they are racing at Laurel this weekend. The Maryland Jockey Club on with an annual sponsorship with us. You're going to have entries, all of that in the WNST morning newspaper. That, of course, brought to you by our friends at Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where it's always $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life. After all this mall food, I'm going to need Planet Fitness when I get back next week. Reminder, of course, that any breaking news will happen first on the WNST Tech Service. All brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. And, of course, Dennis is here on Thursday, each and every Thursday, getting you ready for the weekend with the SSV on WNST. You can listen live from anywhere in the world on the TuneIn Radio app and the BuyAToyota.com audio vault. Lots of stuff out on Facebook Live, YouTube. People have been watching, listening, tweeting, throwing messages back and forth. We've had a great week here, and we're going to keep it rolling here from Minnesota, where it's 4 below right now. It's all brought to you by Howard Bank. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.